deep within the crumbling walls of the abandoned asylum, a forgotten ward lay shrouded in mystery and terror. The once bustling corridors now echoed with the whispers of the damned, and the very air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly energy. It was here that the darkest secrets of the asylum's past lay hidden, waiting to be uncovered by those brave enough to face the horrors that lurked within. The story began in the early 1950s, when the asylum was at the height of its operation. The ward in question was designated for the most disturbed and violent patients, those who had been deemed beyond redemption. It was here that the asylum's most notorious doctor, Dr. Malcolm, conducted his twisted experiments, pushing the boundaries of human sanity to the brink of madness. Dr. Malcolm's obsession with the human mind led him to develop a revolutionary new treatment, the use of electroshock therapy to cure his patients of their mental illnesses. The treatment was brutal and inhumane, but Dr. Malcolm believed it held the key to unlocking the secrets of the human brain. He spent years perfecting his technique, and his patients became the unwitting test subjects for his experiments. As the years passed, the ward became a place of unspeakable terror. Patients were subjected to repeated electroshock treatments, their minds shattered by the constant barrage of pain and fear. The once peaceful asylum was transformed into a living hell, where the screams of the tormented echoed through the corridors. However, Dr. Malcolm's obsession with his work eventually consumed him. He became increasingly reclusive, shutting himself away in his office for hours on end, surrounded by his notes and equipment. His patients were left to fend for themselves, and the ward descended into chaos. One by one, the patients began to disappear. Some say they were taken away by Dr. Malcolm for further experimentation, while others claim they were driven mad by the constant terror and eventually succumbed to their own madness. The truth, however, was far more sinister. The patients who disappeared were not taken away for further experimentation. They were taken away to be silenced. Dr. Malcolm had discovered that his patients were not just suffering from mental illnesses, but were actually vessels for malevolent entities from another realm. These entities, drawn to the darkness and pain of the asylum, had begun to possess the patients, using them as vessels to wreak havoc on the world. Dr. Malcolm, realizing the true nature of his patients, became consumed by a desperate desire to stop the entities. He spent years studying the phenomenon, trying to find a way to banish the entities back to their own realm. But it was too late. The entities had already taken hold, and the ward was forever changed. The asylum was eventually abandoned, and the ward was left to rot. But the entities remained, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. And so the forgotten ward became a place of dark legend, a place where the very fabric of reality was torn asunder. Years went by, and the asylum was left to crumble. The once bustling corridors were now empty and silent, except for the occasional creaking of the old wooden floorboards. But the entities remained, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. It was on a dark and stormy night that a group of teenage explorers decided to venture into the abandoned asylum, determined to uncover the secrets that lay within. They had heard the rumors of the forgotten ward, and they were determined to find out the truth. As they made their way through the crumbling corridors, they began to feel a strange, unsettling energy. It was as if they were being watched, and the air seemed to vibrate with an otherworldly presence. They knew they were getting close to the forgotten ward, and they could feel the weight of the entity's presence bearing down upon them. Finally, they reached the door to the forgotten ward. It was old and rusted, but it slowly creaked open as they pushed it. The room was dark and musty, filled with the stench of decay and rot. But it was here that they found the evidence they had been searching for. In the center of the room, they found a series of old medical records detailing the experiments that Dr. Malcolm had conducted on his patients. They were horrified by what they read, and they knew that they had to get out of there as quickly as possible. But it was too late. The entities had already sensed their presence, and they were closing in. The explorers knew they had to escape, but the doors were locked, and they were trapped. As they frantically searched for a way out, they began to hear the whispers of the damned. The entities were closing in, and they knew they were doomed. One by one, the explorers began to vanish, taken away by the entities to be silenced. The last explorer, a young woman named Sarah, was the only one left. She knew she had to escape, but the doors were locked and she was trapped. She heard the whispers of the damned growing louder, and she knew she was running out of time. In a desperate bid to escape, Sarah began to search the room for any clues that might lead her to freedom. She stumbled upon an old medical record detailing the experiments that Dr. Malcolm had conducted on his patients. It was then that she realized the true horror of what had happened in the forgotten ward. The entities were not just malevolent beings from another realm. They were the manifestation of the patient's own darkest fears and desires. Dr. Malcolm's experiments had unleashed a horror beyond comprehension, and the entities had been feeding on the fear and pain of the patients for years. Sarah knew she had to get out of there, but the doors were still locked. She heard the whispers of the damned growing louder, and she knew she was running out of time. In a desperate bid to escape, she began to search the room for any clues that might lead her to freedom. As she searched, she stumbled upon an old key hidden in the medical record. It was then that she realized the true horror of what had happened in the forgotten ward. The key was the key to unlocking the secrets of the asylum, and it was the only way she could escape. With the key in hand, Sarah made her way back to the door. She inserted the key into the lock, and the door creaked open. She was finally free, but she knew she would never be able to forget the horrors she had witnessed in the forgotten ward. As she made her way back through the corridors, she heard the whispers of the damned growing fainter. She knew she had escaped the entities, but she knew that they would always be lurking in the shadows, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. The forgotten ward was left to rot, a place of dark legend where the very fabric of reality was torn. But Sarah knew that she had uncovered the truth, and she knew that she would never be able to forget the horrors she had witnessed in the forgotten ward.